In this episode, why the X Games is the most iconic action sports event ever. I'm going to break that down, and you're going to understand it better after this is over. Welcome to X Games Week, Access Media TV show. I'm your host, Brad J. I fly tomorrow to Aspen for X Games, and so I thought it'd be in our best interest, since we're both here hanging out, let's talk X Games, because that's what it's all about. And I'm going to give you my top picks, and I'm also going to explain why X Games is the best action sports. It's the pinnacle, and it has been. The Olympics, yes, of course, I'm going to the Olympics too. I'll check in from Italy, but when you look at what X Games has meant to snowboarding, has meant to free skiing, you got to give it up to that, right? And that's what it is. X Games is X Games. It's iconic. It has been. Because if you look at the memories that you've seen at X Games over the years, there's been some big moments. And X Games was doing this event. 95 was the first year. I think Crested Butte for wintertime. San Diego was the first one for summertime, I think. Somewhere around that same time, 98, 95, whatever those years were. But nobody was doing it back then. X Games took a chance with action sports and stepped up big time. And so you could give them crap when they change a logo, if they do something. But when it comes down to it, they're the OG in what it means for action sports. And they always have been. It's iconic. And you look at the things that have happened. Look, one of the number one things, if you have to look back at X Games and say, what happened, right? What's the number one thing in your mind? To me, Shaun White's perfect 100. I was announcing that day. It came up. The score was coming in. Shaun White, a perfect 100. The score comes in. I'm asking, is that right? Is this correct? Is this a typo? Because I'd never seen a perfect 100. I'd never seen one. And at that point, I realized it's a perfect 100. That's what it says on the screen. I'm reading it. The score came in, dropped it, and I said a perfect 100. And that will go on, in my mind, as one of the most iconic moments at X Games. A perfect 100 for Shaun White. Absolutely, absolutely bonkers. My second thing would have to be Travis Pastrana's double backflip at Summer X Games in Los Angeles. Announcing that one on the mic. I remember Travis going into that first rotation and going into that second rotation and how high up he was at the Staples Center back then and landed it. And then probably my biggest low light that I remember is Jake Brown falling out of the sky on skateboarding big air. That was another one where we dropped our headsets and we thought he was done. He was dead. And he wasn't, obviously. He came back. But those are iconic moments. Danny Way, you could look at those moments. You can look at all the winter moments, the fights down to the end. You cannot argue a case against it. X Games has been there from the beginning, and they will continue to be there. So let's talk about X Games Snowboard, X Games favorites for Brad J. What am I thinking about? Who am I thinking could be people that do big things? Well, you've always got to talk about Mark McMorris. Sparky, when it comes to X Games, you can count on him to deliver. He's getting up there in the age, but man, he's got the skills to pay the bills, and he's been doing it for a long time. He's going to be representing Canada in the Olympics as well. But he's a guy that's going to be competing. Look for him to do good. He always does. And you know, he rises to the occasion, and I don't think the spotlight is too much for the guy. I think he can handle it. Another guy everybody's pretty stoked to see, Zeb Powell. Zeb Powell, we're going to see him in Knuckle Huck on probably some 12-foot board or something crazy like that. But he is so fun to watch. And that's what I mean about iconic when you look at X Games. He doesn't fit in the normal mold of a slopestyle contest, a big air contest, or a halfpipe contest. He just goes out and snowboards and has fun. And that's what he's always done. That's what makes Zeb different than everybody else. He is just a man having more fun on a snowboard than anyone else I know. And I know a lot of people have fun on snowboards, but man, does it not show when Zeb Powell's on a snowboard? And that's the kind of things, iconic, X Games, Zeb Powell. You're not going to see him at another competition. He's not going to the Olympics. But you get to see him at X Games. How is that not iconic? Right? And then this guy. Come on, Scotty James, fresh off a win in locks. What can you say about Scotty? Crushing it, always winning, and I don't think I'm looking at the numbers right here. It doesn't look like Ayumu Hirano is going to be in. And if that's the case, which it looks like he is not in, not that Scotty can't beat Ayumu, but that's one of his biggest challenges right there. And Scotty just won in lock, so Scotty James will be there, and he will be competing. And a guy who had the 2340, what are we talking about? Hiroto Ogiwara. Ogiwara is going to be throwing down. And the way the format works for Big Air, I think that he's got a very good chance, if any, to make something happen. And you look back at some of the years. This right here was 2010. That's me and Shaun on the award stage when he had just won that gold medal. So big time right there. And you just think about all the big moments at X Games that have happened over the years, just makes it that much more special. It really does. So when I say that X Games is the most iconic action sports event ever, I absolutely mean it. Some honorable mention shout-outs I want to give to Levko Fedorowicz will be competing in snowboarding in halfpipe. Ryan Warkendorfer, who's had an amazing year, he will be invited too. Saw him on the list. And you got to give shout-outs to Mons Royston and Marcus Cleveland. These dudes and the battles that they've had in Slopestyle. And I mean, how many years? And they're not that old. But Mons Royston and Marcus Cleveland, hats off to you, my friends, for what you have brought to X Games over the years. And when I saw them on the list to compete, I was just like, I was fired up. And Canada got some new talent out there. Eli Bouchard and Cam Spalding, two guys that I'm thinking are going to do quite well for Team Canada. They're going to be representing in the Olympics, but keep an eye on Eli Bouchard for sure as well. And then the one thing I have to say, talking about Zeb Powell for a moment. Zeb Powell's competing in knuckle huck, right? Zeb Powell competing in knuckle huck. And you know who else is competing in knuckle huck, which is even funnier? Haldor Halgeson, right? When are you ever going to see Haldor Helgeson and Zeb Powell in a contest facing each other? When are you going to see that, right? You don't see that. And that is another reason why I say X Games is the most iconic action sports event ever. And that's going to do it. Access Media TV show. I'm your host, Brad J. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the hill.